Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 60 based on novel. So let's start. Even though Qin Mu was sprinting at a flying speed, his brain was still continuing to think, becoming unprecedentedly active. Even though they didn't talk much, this meeting with Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had made his brain sink into a stimulated state. Meeting an unmatched talent would excite oneself, give pressure to oneself and raise oneself up. Even though it was only a normal conversation, to Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, it had an extraordinary significance to Qin Mu. Just by standing in front of this legendary figure, he would require a huge amount of courage, and while talking to him, he would need to set all his wisdom into motion. By conversing with intelligent people, it would fill oneself with wisdom, and if one kept company with ordinary people, they would become ordinary as well. Qin Mu made use of this opportunity, where he was conversing with Imperial Preceptor, to let his wisdom be at his tip-top state, taking this chance to perfect unity technique. Suddenly, his footsteps slowed down and his vital chi circulated through the new and improved Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. The current Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique was the unity technique he had perfected, which had the good points of numerous techniques from great educational heavenly devil scriptures integrated into it. The original Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique had no attributes, and was solely used to execute other techniques and skills. Its power couldn't be compared to the techniques, which came with their own divine arts. For example, Thunderclap 8 Strikes requires Rulai's Mahayana Sutra to be able to unleash its full power. Secrets of Moving Rain requires Black Tortoise Water Control technique to execute it. Secrets of Rolling Thunder and Flames requires Vermilion Bird Fire Control technique to master it. Only then could the power of the thunder and flames be completely unleashed. Meanwhile, Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique was a technique and didn't come with spells or divine arts. Comprehending unity technique this time, Qin Mu had used Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique as the foundation to comprehend the teaching of the woodcutter on the rock. He aroused all kinds of characteristics from Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique to allow it to unleash the power of all kinds of skills. Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique had no attributes, so it couldn't be used for body refinement. It also had no divine arts coming with it, therefore, it couldn't turn into powerful attacks. However, comprehending unity technique this time, Qin Mu had finally solved this difficult problem. And now, Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique had become even more all-embracing. By using the Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique improved by him, the spells, sword skills, battle techniques executed were no weaker than using the coherent technique to execute them. This was the so-called unity technique of great educational heavenly devil scriptures. Every cult master of heavenly devil cult had their own unique unity technique, and the young patriarch's original intention was to let Qin Mu cultivate both unity technique and Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique at the same time after comprehending it. Even though it might be slower, he could attain the advantages of both techniques simultaneously. But he never thought Qin Mu would directly make improvements on Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, instead of comprehending the technique that was built from the foundation of great educational heavenly devil scriptures. Qin Mu didn't know if this was good or bad, or if it was the correct decision. Ever since he was young, he had cultivated Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, and was most familiar with this technique. Thus he had subconsciously changed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique into unity technique. The most crucial point was that he had resolved the inadequateness of Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique on body refinement, spells, and battle techniques. He executed the improved Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, and now, Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique had fused 9 transformations, 3 conditions mystery technique, the body refinement technique of great educational heavenly devil scriptures. This technique was a top-notch body refinement technique in great educational heavenly devil scriptures. Qin Mu had all along been envious of the body refinement techniques of the battle techniques school. However, Old Ma, Butcher, and Cripple had not taught him techniques of this area, therefore, he could only find it from great educational heavenly devil scriptures. As he executed the technique, Qin Mu instantly felt the extraordinary points of the improved Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. His vital qi was circulating rapidly and permeating into his skin, muscles, tendons, hairs, and bone marrow. In the past, his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique had a simpler path of circulation in his body, and now his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique has reached into all parts of his body. Other than refining his body, the new Overlord Body 3 elixir technique also refines his soul, his qi being extremely superior. Qin Mu started to walk slower and slower as he gradually stopped. He experienced the inadequate points in his technique with detail and amended them. The basic structure of his unity technique had already been determined, and all that's lacking was the minor details. He was very lacking in body refinement and soul refinement. Now he only felt like his body was a dried land that had not seen rain for half a year, which was currently absorbing all the moisture and nutrients from the rainwater frantically. Great Educational Heavenly Devil Scriptures, 9 Transformations, 3 Conditions, was the 9 transformations of vital qi and corporeal body, and the 3 conditions of bones in the body. The first condition was bones inseparably close, the second condition was body like iron, and the third condition was like mountain. Now he was only at the stage of the first transformation and first condition. Unknowingly, half a day had passed by and Qin Mu slowly came to floor of heavenly records. In front of floor of heavenly records, a secretary passed by coincidentally and gave him a glance. His face immediately changed and he cried out, "Academician Qin, you'd better recuperate yourself, otherwise you won't live for much longer." Qin Mu was bewildered and didn't understand what he meant. Suddenly a wind blew and he instantly felt giddy and collapsed. Crap! Qin Mu was astonished and immediately raised his hands. Looking at his emaciated arms, he touched his face and could only feel his thin skin that was clinging onto his cheekbones. The clothes that were originally very fitting had now become slightly loose. Only now then did he notice he had become terrifying skinny in 4 hours, like a person made from firewood. Not only that, his corporeal body was also exhausted. Furthermore, as he executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, the speed of this kind of exhaustion increased exponentially. When the energy in his corporeal body got exhausted completely, his death would be due. He only focused on perfecting Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, and cultivating the skills of body refinement and soul refinement. However, he didn't pay attention to his body and only knew now that he was burnt out. The new Overlord Body 3 elixir technique has quite a serious hidden danger. The cultivation speed is too fast, and I've forgotten that body refinement uses the energy in my own body. When the energy in my body is exhausted, it would create an extremely heavy burden on my body. He was already at 5 elements realm, and had a dense cultivation. However, cultivating the new Overlord Body 3 elixir technique to refine his body and soul, the energy in his body couldn't even last 4 hours. Qin Mu immediately stopped executing Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, and let his mind clear up. His mind was working frantically, and he troubled himself over how to make a medicine for his body, as he sprinted towards Scholar's residence. Qin Mu rushed into his own room to grab money, before sprinting towards Imperial College, leaving behind the little fox and the dragon Chilean bewildered. He bought the herbs from the warehouse, and didn't have time to return to his residence, thus he started refining the medicine on the way back. He executed his dazzling hand techniques, and dazzled people's eyes as he refined the medicine. Before he even reached Scholar's residence, he had succeeded in refining a furnace of pills. When these spirit pills were just done, there was actually a faint Buddha voice, as if there was a Buddha in each pill chanting their prayers. The moment these spirit pills were done, Qin Mu opened his mouth to suck the pills in a series. He catalyzed the medicinal energy as he rushed towards his courtyard, and the moment he reached the door, he suddenly felt dizzy and collapsed into the courtyard. Hu Linga cried out and immediately scrambled over. Qin Mu only felt at ease when he saw Hu Linga at his side before he fainted. "Help me catalyze the medicinal energy." Before he even finished his words, he fainted. When Qin Mu woke up groggily, he felt that the medicinal energy of the spirit pills in his stomach had already been catalyzed, and was circulating a warm flow towards 4 limbs and 100 bones like a scalding great furnace. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief, and felt the lingering fear. The United Overlord Body 3 elixir was good, but also extremely dangerous. If he didn't take the chance, when he was still conscious, to refine spirit pills as a remedy, the consequences would be inconceivable, and he would probably have died. If I can't supplement the energy exhausted by my body when I refine my body and soul with Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, I would probably die. Qin Mu opened his eyes and laid there silently. He calculated to himself, if I want to fix this technique, it would be very difficult. It involves me to mobilize my entire body, and if I fix it, it would probably take an extremely long amount of time. In that case, I'd better not cultivate it. Hu Ling'er stood at the side and looked at him anxiously. The dragon Qilin squatted outside the window and wanted to push his head into the window to see if his meal master was still alive. However, his head was too big and the window could only allow one of his eyes in. He couldn't squeeze into the house at all. Qin Mu sat up and found out that he was lying on the bed. It should be the little fox, who had used her demon wind to send him to the bed. He smiled, "There's no need to worry, I'm already fine. When I completely catalyze these medicinal energies, my body will recover." Hu Ling'er let out a sigh of relief and said, "Young master has scared me to death. In just a short time, you have become so starved and skinny. When you collapsed earlier, I was worried you couldn't get up anymore." Qin Mu catalyzed the medicinal energy at ease, and the medicinal energy spread out and was absorbed by his body. He won't die for now, but his body was still in a state of deficiency. This was the inner deficiency caused by refining his body and soul. His body and soul may be stronger, but there were no nutrients to replenish him. It was like a ship flying in the sky. If only a small furnace was provided as motive power for the ship would definitely fall from the sky and shatter into pieces. That was what had just happened to him. Refining his soul had exhausted his spirit, and refining his body had exhausted the energy in his body. The spirit pills he had refined was to replenish his spirit, and not allow his spirit to be completely exhausted. However, his body was still in a severe starving state. Now that his spirit had completely recovered, his body was still terrifyingly skinny, with his skin clinging onto his bone. Qin Mu stood up and asked, "Ling'er, is there anything to eat? I'm very hungry now. Does young master want to eat the green bull?" The huge eyeball of the dragon Qilin outside the window rotated as he said in glee, "There's a wild bull in the back mountain. How about I catch and roast it for young master to eat?" Once this dragon Qilin was no longer hungry, he was full of evil tricks, and always wanted to take revenge on the green bull. Hu Ling'er smiled, "Please wait a moment, young master. Big dragon, let us get some food for young master." After she had said it, she ran out of the house like a wisp of smoke and brought the dragon Qilin out of Scholar's residence. "Sister Ling'er, where are we going to find food?" the dragon Qilin asked in bewilderment. "Do you know how to swim?" Hu Ling'er asked. "There are a few huge fish in Jade Dragon Lake which are several yards long. I've been eyeing them for quite a long time." The dragon Qilin replied in glee. "I've also eyed them for quite a long time, but it wasn't good for me to make a move when old master didn't give the command. Don't worry, I'm also very good at swimming. I can stay underwater for several days and not come up to breathe." Hu Ling'er was greatly delighted and came to Jade Dragon Lake with him. There was a daoist opposite the lake and revealed a questioning expression when he saw them, but before he could make an inquiry, he saw the dragon Qilin diving into the lake. The expression of the daoist changed hugely and he immediately shouted, "That lion, you can't bathe in the lake. That fox, stop the lion." Hu Ling'er immediately said, "Big dragon, faster, faster." The dragon Qilin dived into the lake and stirred up waves. On the lake, the daoist immediately hurried over with a horsetail whisk in his hand. Shaking it towards the lake, the numerous threads scattered down like a giant fishing net, trying to catch that dragon Qilin in the lake. Rumble. The surface of the lake trembled violently, and the daoist gave a grunt. Only the handle of his horsetail whisk was left, and he knew he wasn't a match for this dragon Qilin, thus he immediately turned and ran while shouting, "Demon, you guys dared to bathe in the Jade Dragon Lake of the royal family, and even dared to beat me. Just you wait to be executed." Not long later, the scholars of Imperial College walked out from Hall of Pure Yang and towards Scholar's residence. Today, it was Daoist Ling Yun teaching, and what Hall of Pure Yang taught was the path of cultivating qi. Daoist Lingyun was widely known for his profound cultivation, cultivating his qi into the level of pure yang. Before the numerous scholars could even return to scholars' residence, they all stopped and looked back in astonishment, freezing on the spot. They only saw a ridiculously huge red fish flying through the air. There were red scales on the body of the red fish, and on its head were dragon's horns. This was because after absorbing the qi of the 9 dragons here for many years, the fish head had started to turn into a dragon. It was like a half fish half dragon, that had a mouth filled with razor-sharp teeth, looking extremely fierce. However, now this huge fish was being restrained by a few vital qi, and couldn't move at all. A demon wind was carrying this huge fish towards scholars' residence, causing all the scholars to be dumbfounded. Behind this huge fish was an even larger dragon Qilin, that was running and shaking off the water on his body at the same time. There was also a white-colored fox, that was standing on the head on the dragon Qilin, raising demon wind to carry the huge fish. That dragon Qilin rushed into scholars' residence, and threw the huge fish into the courtyard of Academician Qin with a thump. The little fox then scampered into the courtyard and shut the doors. A scholar muttered, "That fish seems to be one of the fish kings in Jade Dragon Lake. It's called red dragon carp, and it's an imperial cuisine that the emperor treats the civil and military officials during the New Year feast." A scholar beside was also in a daze as he muttered, "Last year, my old father was indebted to the emperor's benevolence, and had a taste of the fish soup on the imperial dragon feast. He came back exclaiming endlessly, and even kept telling me it was a worldly delicacy until now. However, that red dragon carp was only a foot long. This one." Before the other scholars came around to their senses, they saw the door to Qin Mu's room opening up again. This white fox scampered out again, and looked around before running to a mulberry tree. She then spat out a demon wind and chopped down the mulberry tree. She then controlled the demon wind to turn into curved blades to chop the mulberry tree into firewood before bringing them back into the courtyard. The little fox took a few trips and even carried the trunk of the tree back into the courtyard. Billowing smoke then came surging out from Qin Mu's courtyard. It was obvious that the little fox and the dragon Qilin was currently raising a fire to roast the fish. The scholars looked at one another and Chuting muttered, "That's the ambition tree planted by monk Qingshan, the directorate of Hall of Azure Yang. It's a tree planted to motivate scholars to seek knowledge." Not long after, the delicious fragrance spread throughout scholars' residence. Saliva started flowing out from all of the scholars' mouth. The fox and dragon Qilin this abandoned person had brought over, killed the fish king in the drinking grounds of the royal family before chopping down the ambition tree that monk Qingshan planted to use it to raise fire for roasting the fish. This act of recklessness, are they trying to rebel? "Young master, how's the taste?" The youth and the fox's conversation came over from Qin Mu's courtyard, and they heard Qin Mu saying, "Still okay. It's just that it wasn't marinated, thus the flavor wasn't soaked through. It's best to marinate a fish for a whole day, so it would be crisp, fragrant and tender when you eat it. This fish is pretty huge. Where did you get it from?" "From the lake." "So I see. I once fished with Grand Chancellor beside the lake and saw a few huge red fish. However, we only caught a 9 dragon carp, which was quite small. However, the flavor of the soup was very delicious. It's pretty good of you to use mulberry wood to roast the fish. It gives off sweet and sour fruity taste of the mulberry." All the scholars in scholars' residence had an expression of rejoice in his upcoming misfortune. Chu Ting snickered, "Academician Qin is dead meat." In the courtyard, Qin Mu prodded the thick wooden skewer to rotate the red dragon carp, and below was a vigorous flame, which was the mulberry flames controlled by the dragon Qilin, roasting the huge fish tender on the inside and crisp on the outside. The dragon Qilin controlled the fire to let the heat seep into the meat and bones of the huge fish. The mulberry wood gave off water vapor, thus there was a smoky flavor. Hu Linger then controlled the wind to let some of the smoky flavors enter the meat of the fish. They then stuffed numerous mulberry leaves, onions, and ginger into the stomach of the fish. In the stomach of the fish was tender fish oil, which sizzled when it dripped onto the fire as they roasted the fish. The fish oil gave off a smoky smell when burned, raising their appetite hugely. When the entire fish was cooked, Hu Linger immediately controlled her wind blades to slice off the meat from the fish belly. The meat here was the plumpest. Her knife work was very good as each slice of fish was precise. At the same time, she also controlled the plate to let the slices of fish fall onto the plate. Each slice of fish was crystal clear, and the slices looked like pieces of tender jade white fat from mutton. Qin Mu suppressed the fire and lowered the intensity of the fire. The human, the fox, and the dragon Qilin sat beside the bonfire and ate the roasted fish. Qin Mu's heart slightly moved when he remembered a weird technique in great educational heavenly devil scriptures, which was called spirit returning pill great supplement technique. He immediately executed his vital qi to circulate this technique to speed up his digestion. Soon his stomach became empty, thus his mouth continued with eating the roasted fish around the bonfire. The name of this technique was weird and the technique itself was even weirder. The main method of cultivation for spirit returning pill great supplement technique relied mainly on eating. This technique could transform any food that reached the stomach into energy, or even vital qi for the body. This helped to strengthen one's body and raise their cultivation, thus it was called spirit returning pill great supplement technique. Now that Qin Mu's body was so skinny, he needed to replenish the energy he had exhausted in his body. Now that there was a ridiculously huge roasted fish in front of him, he could use this technique to supplement his body. This fish was a unique breed after all. Living in Imperial College for so many years, it had absorbed the qi of the 9 dragons, thus it was firstly delicious and secondly, its meat was nutritious. Now Qin Mu's body was exhausted. By executing this weird technique, the food in his stomach was immediately digested into nutrients, which were absorbed by his whole body. His shriveled muscles also gradually bulged, and even though it was very slow, Qin Mu reckoned his muscles would grow back if he finished eating this 10 yards long fish. Hu Linga couldn't stuff herself any longer, and the dragon Qilin used to eat scarlet fire spirit pills, thus he didn't like the fish meat very much, and stopped after a few mouthfuls. Only Qin Mu continued to sit there eating to his heart's content. Suddenly a knock came from outside, and Hu Linga dragged her bulging tummy and ran to open the door. Wei Yong walked in with his nose twitching and smiled. It's just the time for lunch and I smell a fragrance coming from Brother Qin's place, thus I've come to ask for food. The stone dragon lion at the mountain gate has come to life. Little fox, how did you get even fatter than me from eating? Hu Linga gave a snort. Wei Yong then looked at Qin Mu who was sitting beside the bonfire and cried out in astonishment, Little fox, did you borrow Qin Mu's male force to strengthen your feminine health by sleeping with him? Brother Qin. How did he become so skinny? Hu Linga was furious and anxious. I haven't got a chance to do it. Don't speak nonsense. If you didn't do it, who did? Wei Yong was bewildered. I knew that there would definitely be a problem when Brother Qin asked where the cat house was the moment he entered the capital city. Your body has become unable to tolerate as expected, am I right? Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry and invited him to sit down. Wei Yong didn't hold back and tore off a huge chunk of fish meat. He tasted it and the meat was so slippery that it slid straight down his throat, nearly causing his tongue to slip into his stomach as well. He couldn't help being surprised and delighted as he exclaimed in admiration. He then spoke with a low and muffled voice, the directorates are all not very pleased when you haven't attended their lessons for the past few months. They said stuff like Imperial Academician being ignorant and incompetent, that the Emperor shouldn't have raised your ranks. That's right, what happened to you? How did you become so skinny? I had made a mistake in my cultivation and almost lost my life. Qin Mu said, lucky I discovered just in time, and now I'm replenishing my energy back. Wei Yong smiled, you have pretty big guts as well, to actually cultivate recklessly. I'm also an imperial scholar now and have some position in Duke's Manor, what pills do you need? I can grab some from Duke's Manor to let you supplement your body. Qin Mu shook his head and said, when I finish eating this fish, my body would be able to recover, and there would be no need for me to consume spirit pills. Do you know? Chancellor Ba Shan and Grand Chancellor Gu had fought each other, and got each other all blooded outside the capital city. Even the emperor was alarmed. Wei Yong had a burp and said, my father went to mediate in the quarrel along with other first-ranking high officials, and only then did they stop fighting. I went out to make some inquiries and heard that the emperor had called them both over to give them a harsh scolding. Only when I finished asking around, I came back to freeload a meal here. Before you came back, Chancellor Ba Shan had found me and said he wanted to bring me out for an experience, I reckon. Brother Wei, don't talk while eating. Not long after, Wei Yong, this chubby youth, had grown even bigger, and he couldn't eat anymore. However, he still saw Qin Mu continuing to eat heartily, and with each piece of fish going into his stomach actually didn't bulge at all. Wei Yong was amazed. When he saw Qin Mu's skinny body expanding out, as if he was filled with air, he gave a pinch and found there were all muscles in his body, making him even more astonished. When this huge fish had been completely finished, only a huge fishbone that spanned up to 10 yards long was left. Qin Mu's body had recovered to normal and seemed to be even stronger than before, making Wei Yong incessantly envious. Where did you buy such a delicious fish from? Wei Yong's mouth was still itching for more, but he just couldn't eat anymore, thus he asked. I have never seen such a huge fish in the market of the capital city, nor have I ever eaten such a delicious fish. I definitely have to buy a few more and give special attention to them. Qin Mu said indifferently, fished out from Jade Dragon Lake. Wei Yong stared with his eyes wide open and asked immediately, which Jade Dragon Lake? The one in our Imperial College. Wei Yong gulped and asked with a trembling voice, our Imperial College's Jade Dragon Lake. This fish is one of the fish kings in Jade Dragon Lake. Qin Mu looked at Hu Linga and Hu Linga nodded her head. I asked Big Dragon to catch a huge one, this one that he caught was the biggest. Wei Yong's expression turned ashen, and he saw the mulberry leaves and branches that were scattered throughout the entire courtyard. He then asked again with a trembling voice, when I came back just now, I had seen the ambition tree in Scholar's residence left with a stump, could it be? That mulberry tree is called ambition tree. Hu Linga said in astonishment, the tree even has a name. Wei Yong's face turned ghastly white, and he walked shakily and muttered in a daze, chopping down ambition tree to use it to roast the fish king of Jade Dragon Palace. Even if I've multiple heads, it still wouldn't be enough for the emperor to chop off. I've never been here, never been here. A fox demon and a dragon head lion is creating havoc in Jade Dragon Lake. Not only did they bathe in the lake, they even beat you up. Ji Yulinwan had just returned from the palace, and the Daoist, who was guarding Jade Dragon Lake, came forward to complain. Ji Yulinwan's heart couldn't help trembling violently as he cried out, the fish king among the red dragon carps was captured away by that dragon lion. Whose fox demon and dragon lion have such huge guts? I have assumed this position for just a month and such a thing happened. Who is trying to make me wear tight shoes? Before he could digest this news, another person came to report, Grand Chancellor, the fox raised by Academician Qin of Imperial College, had chopped down ambition tree and used it to roast the fish. That fish seems to be the fish king of Jade Dragon Lake, which got roasted and eaten. Imperial Academician Qin and Imperial Scholar Wei Yong are packing up the fish bones now, trying to get rid of the evidence. Ji Yulinwan couldn't help being surprised and delighted, this brat. I was worrying that I had no method to create difficulties for him. Now it can be said that he had delivered himself to my door. This matter is enough for him to be beheaded 100 times. Now Ba Shan, that idiot, should be speechless. He went into high spirits and immediately stood up while saying, let's go, follow me to arrest them. We need both material evidence and witness testimony. Just send them under escort to Temple of Justice to be interrogated by the official there, executing his whole family. We'll then send a memorial to the emperor, reporting to him about this matter. What about the scholar called Wei Yong? Arrest him as well and punish him together with Qin Mu. Ji Yulinwan smiled. I was still saying who was making me wear tight shoes, but now as I see it, this pair of shoes ain't tight, but just right. Ji Yulinwan and the rest barged into Scholar's residence, but they didn't find Qin Mu in his courtyard. There were only a fox and a dragon Chileen who was snoring. Ji Yulinwan woke up this dragon Chileen and asked, where the brat with the surname Qin? Dragon Chileen raised his head and took a glance at them before replying slowly, he was still here just now, people from the palace came to invite him over. Could it be that the emperor had already known about this matter, therefore, he had summoned him into the palace to behead him. Ji Linwan chuckled. This brat still has my junior protector sword, beheading him is also letting him off lightly. What are you guys spacing out for? Arrest the fox and the dragon Qilin. I'll be entering the emperor's palace, and personally see how this brat dies for myself. After he had finished saying that, he hurried away. The few chancellors that came with him and the daoist guarding Jade Dragon Lake immediately made use of a chain to chain up this dragon Qilin. Hu Linga wanted to run away, but she was also captured. Ji Linwan rushed to the palace energetically and requested to meet the emperor. After a moment, a guard reported, His Majesty is at Imperial Garden, may Lord Ji head over there. Ji Linwan was astonished, beheading the Qin brat in Imperial Garden. His Majesty seems to be really angry. When he came to Imperial Garden, he heard laughter coming over and Ji Linwan was bewildered. He walked over and saw Emperor Yang Feng help Empress Dowager by the arm while a few officials followed behind them. Qin Mu was behind Empress Dowager on the left, saying something which made Empress Dowager laugh. Emperor Yang Feng saw him and waved his hand to summon him over. He then asked warmly, Official, what are you here for? Ji Linwan hesitated for a moment and said, Academician Qin let a dragon Qilin jump in Jade Dragon Lake to catch the Fish King before eating it. Jade Dragon Lake is the drinking ground of the royal family, and red dragon carp is an imperial cuisine of the royal family. For Academician Qin to be so impudent, this is a death crime. I don't dare to hide it, therefore, I'm here to report this to the emperor. Something like that actually happened. Emperor Yang Feng looked at Qin Mu and asked, What does official Qin have to say? I'm a person outside the sphere of civilization, and didn't know about the rules of the capital city, therefore I've been rude and impetuous. Qin Mu said, I didn't know that Jade Dragon Lake was the property of the royal family, and didn't know that I couldn't eat the fish in the lake. I am deeply guilty, and may your highness deal with me. This is a death crime. Emperor Yang Feng looked at him and said, Even though I recognize your worth, the law is law. How do you want me to deal with you? Ji Linwan smiled, Your Highness, according to the law, you will have to execute his whole family. Empress Dowager smiled, Emperor, I also think the little divine physician should be beheaded. Emperor Yang Feng was slightly stunned and smiled, Why does mother say such a thing? Empress Dowager walked forward calmly and said leisurely, Of course he should be beheaded. If you don't execute little divine physician, how would the world know that the emperor value a fish more than a human? If you don't execute Academician Qin, how would the world know the emperor value water more than a human? Only when you execute him, would the talents in the world know that the emperor would execute a reputable divine physician that has cured me just for a mouthful of water and a fish. Only then would they know the emperor is an incapable ruler. Emperor Yang Feng laughed out loud and waved, Lord Ji you shouldn't bother me for such trifles. Retreat. Ji Linwan was bewildered, this. Retreat, retreat. Emperor Yang Feng waved his hand and said, You didn't guard the Jade Dragon Lake properly, but I won't punish you for your crime. After all, you are new in Imperial College. What you have done today has already made my head ache. You actually fought with Chancellor Ba Shan and brought shame on me. If you had won, it's still fine, but you didn't. A Grand Chancellor can't beat a Chancellor, I lost face all because of you. You better return to reflect on yourself. Acknowledged. Ji Linwan felt grieved and was about to leave when Qin Mu said, Lord Ji, my fox and that dragon Qilin, please don't make things difficult for them. Ji Linwan's heart leaped and heard Empress Dowager laughing. I presume he won't even dare to. That's right, Emperor, you haven't rewarded little divine physician for curing me. Mother, he's already an Imperial Academician, a 6th-ranking official. I can't raise him anymore. He is still young after all. We'll talk about it after a few years, in case the officials of the Imperial Court say I favor him. Little divine physician, tell me more about the interesting stuff when you were little. Ji Linwan walked further away, and went out of the palace to return to Imperial College. He had a belly full of anger yet nowhere to vent. The daoist that was guarding Jade Dragon Lake immediately went forward and asked, Grand Chancellor, have the thief been executed? It's all your fault for meddling. All you have to do is to look after the lake, yet you created such a ruckus, making me humiliated. Gu Linwan stared at him and shouted, "Release that fox and dragon Qilin." The Daoist guarding the lake felt extremely wrong. He didn't know what he had done wrong and why Gu Linwan got so angry at him, and could only release Hu Linga and the dragon Qilin. Grand Chancellor, we had already sent men to capture Wei Yong, but Wei Yong was following Chancellor Ba Shan, and he didn't let us take him away. How do you think? What's Wei Yong's background? He's from Duke Wei's family. Don't look for trouble when there's none. In the Imperial Garden, Empress Dowager chatted with Qin Mu for a while more. Qin Mu then checked her pulse and wrote down a few prescriptions and said, "Empress Dowager, you're recovering well, there's no hidden danger left behind." Good. Empress Dowager smiled, "Thanks for the trouble, little divine physician." Qin Mu stood up to make his leave. Emperor Yangfeng smiled, "Dear Minister, hold your step, there's something I want to talk to you about." Qin Mu stopped and Emperor Yangfeng walked to him while waving his hands to let the eunuch and palace maids fall back. He walked out of Imperial Garden while smiling. "My Imperial Academician, Cult Master of Heavenly Devil Cult, Abandoned Person of Great Ruins, Disciple of Jade Face Poison King, Minister Qin, sure has a lot of identities." Qin Mu was slightly stunned and his footsteps subconsciously slowed down. If Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor could know he was the new Cult Master of Heavenly Devil Cult, Emperor Yangfeng naturally had his ways to know as well. Emperor Yangfeng had already walked far away, and he turned his head back to ask, "Dear Minister, why are you not catching up?" Qin Mu hurried to catch up and smiled, "Your Majesty has a flood of good fortune that fills the heavens." Emperor Yangfeng laughed, "Heavenly Devil Cult as the #1 sect of the Devil Path, the #1 sacred ground, for their cult master to be the student of the Son of Heaven, I indeed have a flood of good fortune that fills the heavens. However, it can be a fortune, or it can be a calamity. Dear Minister Qin, do you think it's a fortune, or it's a calamity?" Qin Mu smiled, "Your Majesty, if Dao Master of Dao Sect yields to Your Majesty, what position would Your Majesty confer on him?" Emperor Yangfeng said solemnly, "Dao Master of Dao Sect, the head of the righteous path in this world, I will confer him as upper first ranking, allowing him to be called king, inheriting the title generation after generation." Qin Mu then asked, "If Rulai of Great Thunderclap Monastery yields to Your Majesty, what position would Your Majesty confer on him?" Emperor Yangfeng said, "Rulai is best in the Buddhist path, and if he is willing to become an official of the imperial court, I will confer him as upper first ranking, allowing him to be called primogenitor." Qin Mu said, "The 3 sacred grounds of eternal peace, the Emperor will confer the sect masters of Dao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery as upper first ranking, calling king, and becoming primogenitor. Heavenly Saint Cult is also a sacred ground, and the cult master of Heavenly Saint Cult had taken the initiative to yield, yet Your Majesty only confer an unpresentable 6th ranking, and still ask if it is a fortune or calamity. Aren't you making the faithful officials and loyalists bitterly disappointed?" Emperor Yangfeng was slightly stunned and nodded his head, "What you said is reasonable. However, I can't promote you immediately, you're still too young after all. If I promote you directly, people would gossip and they would be able to guess your identity." Qin Mu agreed. Emperor Yangfeng remained silent for a moment. "I know there are some grudges between you and Gu Linwan, and also know you took his junior protector sword away. You're the cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult, you need to be more magnanimous and don't always make him wear tight shoes. He is placed in Imperial College by me, and if you make him too embarrassed, it won't look good on me as well." Qin Mu felt a little wronged. "Your Majesty, how would I dare to make him wear tight shoes?" Emperor Yangfeng seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. "Didn't you just make him wear tight shoes today, putting him on the spot? You can be at ease. No one would dare to say they surpass Imperial Preceptor in being extremely daring. If I dare to use him, I will also dare to use you. There's no need for any suspicions in your heart. All right, you can fall back." Qin Mu walked out of the palace and felt refreshed. He let out a murky breath and completely relaxed. Since Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had known his identity, he would be slightly worried if Emperor Yangfeng didn't. Now that the emperor and imperial preceptor both knew his identity, he would instead be safe and wouldn't be worried that these two big shots would lay their hands on him. Over 10 days later, Qin Mu's West House was piled up with great abundance coins exchanged using the dragon's saliva. Before Chancellor Ba Shan brought Wei Yong and Prince Minue out for experience, he went to his West House to carry away a few bags of coins. Qin Mu didn't mind at all since he was rich. During these few days, he would refine scarlet fire spirit pills, as well as another spirit pill that could replenish spirit whenever he was free. When he refined this kind of spirit pill, he would use the hand technique of Buddhism. Therefore, the refined spirit pills would give off Buddha voice, which was why Qin Mu called these spirit pills as Spirit Buddha pills. He went to the warehouse to buy herbs these few days and almost bought all the dozens of herbs he needed. There was going to be a large-scale training in Imperial College recently, and scholars were chosen to go to the front lines. Directorates of each hall were to bring scholars to the front lines to quell the rebellion. Qin Mu was also picked by Ji Yulinwan, who said he must definitely go to the front lines, because Qin Mu was a 6th-ranking Imperial academician, and had almost the same treatment as the directorates. Therefore Ji Yulinwan also gave Qin Mu a few scholars to let him lead. These scholars were all scholars of the 5 elements realm from scholars' residents, who didn't have much battle prowess. Their cultivations were way inferior to the divine arts practitioners in divine arts residents. This video will end here.